there's a part of me that feels totally a part of this world. And there's a part of me that is still shocked that this is what I do and that I have a part to play in this grand conversation that is yoga. Yoga is such a big topic. There's meditation, there's asana poses, there's breath work. There's all these different aspects of the yoga conversation. I'm just shocked and honored that this guy that was born in Texas, never thought of himself as a yogi, and still am surprised that this is what I do, that I get to actually play a part in this ancient and wonderful play of consciousness.
Welcome to Dr. Patty Ann's podcast. And today I have a guest that I feel like I've known my whole life, and I suspect you might too. But before we go any further, since I know you're going to love this podcast, make sure you comment, share, like, and most importantly, subscribe. So without any further ado, if you know me, you know I am a Peloton junkie. I talk about the instructors. My kids, my friends make fun of me because I bought in. I want the likes. And I really think that these people are my friends. I watched Allie get married. I watched Cody on his book tour do Dancing with the Stars. And today we have a new instructor, meaning new to the podcast, Ross Rayburn, who is a yogi Peloton instructor. So thank you so much, Ross, for being a guest today. I'm really excited.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here.
All right. So Ross and I were talking before we came on, and Ross is a little bit like me, where he does a lot of radio, he does a lot of TV, and he also forgets important things. So he was telling me about how he forgot his wallet yesterday and he had to run and get it. But the reason why I'm sharing that story with you is because when we watch Ross as an instructor, as a teacher, as a yoga instructor, sometimes he seems superhuman. So I just wanted to humanize him for all our listeners here, Ross.
Wonderful. Please tell me how. I gotta
throw you off your game. Okay, so Ross, here's my first question to you, okay? Tell us something about yourself that has had a major influence on who you are today in every capacity, not just an instructor, on who you are today, that is something that most people don't know about you. They can't read about it in your book. They can't Google your name and find out about you. Something that most people don't know.
So many things. What can you narrow
really?
It? Oh my gosh. Can you narrow it down? Like what would be
had a major influence on who you are today in any area of your life?
Wow, that is such a good question. I mean, I have to say that my last name is not Rayburn. I was born Ross Fuquay.
What was that? What was that name?
Fuquay, Feuquay. And so
Spanish-ish?
No, I think French actually, like Fouquet.
French. Oh. Okay.
So I'll try to be Reader's Digest version, which I always love that reference.
Oh my gosh, I say that all the time, Ross. I say that, and for the listeners that are under 35, Reader's Digest was like the Skinny, where you get your news. It's like the Skinny. Just so you know, you just dated yourself.
I know, right? By the way, I love that because I'll be 53 in February, and I just think that it's so funny to me that people like younger than us, like, what is Reader's Digest?
How about say, look it up in the encyclopedia? The what?
Right. You check the Google. So let me try to do a short version. My mother, who was born in 1945, got married my mom and I are really close. So she doesn't mind me sharing this, I hope. My mom got my
If she does,
my,
you'll find out.
my mom got married in 1965. Her
So
parents were very
45, 65. So she was 20.
she was 20. Her parents were very wealthy, and both of my grandparents were pilots. My
Airline pilots
grandmother,
or military
no,
pilots?
no commercial. So my
Commercial.
grandmother was one. I mean, I'm sorry, not commercial. What's that called?
Military.
Private. They, no, the private.
Oh, private.
So my grandmother was one of the few, I think, just not that many women in the 50s and 60s were pilots.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so this is a bit of a wah-wah story. So in 1966, they were coming home. So they both were pilots. My grandfather was flying. They were coming home from an Alabama Crimson Tide game with another couple,
Oops,
and
roll tide.
yeah, but they had a plane crash. And so
I'm sorry.
I was born in 1971, and so they at my mom was 21 in 1966 when they died with another couple. She had a 10-year-old sister that was 11 in 1966. So all of a sudden she had to raise her sister and had a very rough time. The business went under after a few years. And
The business that made them wealthy.
yeah. And so she
So I
separated
take
from
it she wasn't groomed to take over the business then, right? Because it was
my,
just thrust upon her.
yeah, my natural father, exactly. My natural father um, became like he kind of was one of the reasons why the business went under. And she basically, I don't want to offend my family, but basically, she woke up one day and had no money. And so she met Bob Rayburn, who is my essentially adopted father,
Right.
and he adopted me. So I took his name, and that's pretty much it. Like, so I'm not a Rayburn by birth, but that's what I grew up as a Rayburn. And so it's weird because he was my dad. That's who I grew up
Right.
with. And I consider him my father, but he wasn't my natural father. And then he died when I was 17 in 1988. So my mom basically, she had a pretty rough time. She lost her parents when she was 21. She lost her business and had to make a life out of tragic circumstances, and then lost her husband, her love of her life, her second husband, and and then my
Do we know what happened to the first husband?
yeah, so he kind of, yeah, again, I don't want to like offend anyone in my family, but basically he what's the right way to say this?
Not a
Um,
good guy.
no, he just like was all of a sudden didn't have the right. He didn't know how to be that person. And so it was just a tragic circumstance all the way
Wait,
around.
wait, wait. What's that person?
Like he was all of a sudden thrust upon, he had a life that he didn't want thrust upon him.
Got it.
And
Right.
so my mom, and then the coda of this story was then my mom, her third husband, had Alzheimer's. So she has had a really tough life. And I like to say she is still one of the most gregarious, spiritual,
Resilient. Yeah.
resilient, and all these tragic circumstances. And she's still full of life and
Hmm.
a lovely, fantastic person. And so I say that just because I think that I got most of my resilience from her. And I just really believe that one of the things that I like to think there's one of my superpowers is the ability to forgive, the ability to, like she told me about her parents because I didn't know them, was just a belief that you'll be okay, that even when life deals, when you're dealt an awful hand, that ultimately, and this is the intro of my book, you will be okay. And I thank her so much for that.
Is she in Chicago with you too?
No, no. So we moved to Texas. So she divorced Marty Fuqua, married Bob Rayburn. We moved to Texas, and which is where I grew up. Yeah, and that's pretty much it. And so, yeah.
Is she remarried?
No, so I'm sorry, I didn't finish that story. So Marty Fuqua was her first husband. Bob Rayburn was her second husband,
Right.
and then her third husband, who had Alzheimer's, passed away. Gosh, I want to say 5 years ago. And so, yeah, so she's now in Houston, and
Uh-huh.
yeah, that's pretty much it.
What does she do for work, or is she retired?
She's retired. She was born in 1945, so she'll be 80 in 25. And
Good for her. Well, what was she do?
yeah.
What did she do for work later in her life? I'm just curious.
Oh, yeah, she's done a couple of things. She sold insurance for a while,
Mm.
and yeah, so she's retired. And again, it's like I love her so much, and I know she's had a rough life. But again, she's just an incredibly resilient, full of life, but also had a rough life.
Yeah. You know what, though? Honestly, nobody gets out alive.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mean to laugh, but
No, no,
it's kind of funny and great.
it's true, right? Okay. So this is such a great, and thank you so much for sharing that. And
Yeah, I
and
think you're.
and I think many times when people see someone, the joke is when you're on Instagram or whatever, you see someone's highlight reel. That's not life. We see someone's life and we think it was a bed of roses, right? Even though intellectually we know everyone's carrying a burden that nobody else knows about, no
Yeah.
matter who you are. So I always tell people to be kind. But tell me how you think your your experience and your experience with your mom has impacted your yoga practice and your teaching and your training. And I've practiced yoga for years, although I dare say I'm anywhere near the expert that you are. But there is such a focus, like we've made such a huge mistake, and you know this because you also train athletes. We've made such a huge mistake, like people have been having health long before the AMA came along, right? And then the AMA, the American Medical Association, came along, and all of a sudden we talk about the mind and the body as if they're separated. Well, the bottom of the, brain, base stem of the brain, is attached to the top of the spinal cord. So which comes first, the thought or the emotion? And I feel like yoga has really tried to blend the two. Like there's a lot to be learned from Eastern medicine, Western medicine. And I just feel like, at least in the States, we're finally getting to a place where people are embracing your work. So talk a little bit about that. Go anywhere you want with it, including disagree with me if you feel that way.
Absolutely. So tell me a little bit, like tell me what the question is there.
The question
So
is, how do you feel yoga is finally making an inroad to helping
mm,
people grow and to be healthy and to deal with the challenges and the burdens that life throws upon all of us? No one no one is stress free. I guess maybe that's a good way to say it.
right. No, I mean, yeah, I agree. No one is stress free. And I mean, to be honest, tell me if this is the genesis of the question. I yoga is so for me, I came to yoga very late. I A lot of people, a lot of my yoga friends were raised in the yoga tradition, and I didn't start yoga until I started practicing in 1997. So I was born in 71. I'm so bad at math, by the way. So in 1997, I was
71, 81,
26.
91, 20. Yeah, you did it. There you go.
Oh my gosh, I get so nervous. I'm so bad at math. And yeah, I just feel like I don't- I was I know so many people that were kind of born into it, and I feel
Really?
like
You mean that when you say that, you mean what? Their parents practiced or they
yeah,
grew up in California? Like what?
I just have friends like one of my close friends really knew, like I always felt like a little bit of an imposter. Like I felt like a little bit of, not a fraud because that's too harsh, but like I wasn't I I always felt like I was kind of watching everybody else who were natural yogis, and I was always kind of an interloper. And
You felt. You felt.
I felt, yeah, because I was like, I still to this day, even though I feel like I know more about yoga than most people on the planet, I know more about India than, I'm such a type A nerd. So I hope this doesn't sound self-aggrandizing. I could sit on a panel, even though I'm Caucasian, white, cisgender, super privileged. I could sit on a panel about spirituality and metaphysics and really hold my own. But at the same time, I still feel like I teach yoga. Like, I still feel like that's me.
What do you mean? Hang on. What do you mean by that? What do you mean by that?
I,
You can hold your
I,
own, but you teach yoga.
I
Sounds
just
like
mean
you're
there's a
minimizing that.
no. Yeah, no, thank you. I feel like there's a part of me that still can't believe that this is what I do for a living, even though I've been doing it for
Oh,
25 years. I'm still like, that's what I do because so
so you
many
shouldn't
other
be able
people.
to make a living out of doing something that brings you joy. You should be, what's that line? Most men live lives of desperation.
Yeah, exactly. I just feel like I I feel like it's hard for me to believe that I've made a life out of something that I came to very late in life, and that I'm an expert, but I'm still shocked that I know that this is what I do. And so when you ask me about like yoga becoming mainstream, there's a part of me that feels a part of this world, and there's a part of me that is still shocked that this is what I do, and that I have a part to play in this grand conversation that is yoga. And the ultimately where I'm trying to go with this is yoga is such a big topic. There's meditation, there's asana poses, there's breath work, there's all these different aspects of the yoga conversation. And A, I'm honored to be a part of that conversation. And B, I just, I don't know. I feel like even though I have a lot to say and I feel like I could hold my own on a panel, I also feel like it's such a vast conversation. It's such a big, um, it's such a grand, beautiful panoply of just um Um, kind of, kind of beauty, a kind of a grand consciousness that
Mhm.
I'm just shocked and honored that this guy that was born in Texas that never thought of himself as a yogi and still am surprised that this is what I do, that I get to actually play a part in this ancient and wonderful play of consciousness.
So it sounds like what you're saying is that yoga isn't what you do, it's who you are. It is a part of
Mm,
you. Like you're
wow,
one and the same.
that's so beautiful.
That's what it feels like when you talk, when you say that, right?
Yeah, I mean, I love that.
Good. Take it. Run with it. Run with it. Right. What is your big listen, I do work that I love too. And my feeling is, well, we all make choices, right? So whatever. That sounds a little harsh, but um tell me what you from your experience, what you see, what you feel, but what you believe to be the biggest misconception about a yoga practice.
Well, first of all, I think people assume that it's so serious and sacrosanct,
Mm,
and it's fun. Like yoga
mm,
is joyful, and it's not, even though it's so
mm,
powerful, that it's it's a dance, and it's an important, it's playful, and that it's not, we're not it's not, it's this paradox that we're supposed to be um profound and deep, and
mhm, mhm,
but it's not precious. It's meant to be a dance. It's meant to be full and of joy. It's not something that should be like a pretension, a kind of um, sacred only. It is sacred and is
mhm.
profound, but it's meant to be full of joy and full of a kind of play that reminds me more of childlike than adult like.
Okay, so and you're right because I mean a lot of the yogis that I know, they are such intense people too. Like they're like the antithesis of a yogi. Like I'm like, let it go, be free. They're like so freaking type A. Go ahead,
If I can interrupt,
please.
because I just want to be more clear, I learned a long time ago that I'm not funny. And I wanted to be funny. And one of my friends calls me the guy who's funny. Like if I was, Debbie Downer on Saturday Night Live.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
If I was a Saturday Night Live character, he calls me the guy that's funny 10% of the time. And so
Oh my
I
gosh.
realized that no one would laugh. I called her my yoga wife, Tiffany Fraser. We did all of our retreats
Hmm.
together. And she would say, like, I need to bring a gong with us on the retreat to let people know when you tell a joke. And so I realized that the only way that I could get people to laugh was say something intentionally that wasn't funny, and then make fun of the fact that I wasn't funny. And it was the self-deprecating that actually worked. And
Mm, hmm.
here's why it actually matters. Because I didn't care about being funny, but I did care about letting people know that it's important to not think of me as a priest. It's important for you to come into this practice and have a good time. That if I
Mm,
one of my
mm.
favorite sayings is, don't put yourself on a pedestal, because if you're on a pedestal, it's about you, it's not about the students. And as soon as you're on a pedestal, someone will tear it down. And
Mm.
so it was important to me to be not to be funny to get a laugh, but to let everybody know that this is a playful, joyful practice and to get over yourself and just have a good time and have fun in life. And so I didn't care about getting a laugh, but I did care about letting people know that laughter and joy is more important than any kind of sacred, like even pretension,
Mhm.
and just that it again, it's like a dance. Does that make sense?
It does. And it's so fluid. And I'm really struck by what you're sharing because I'm really feeling why you're so successful in what you do. I think
Mhm.
that's the differentiator for you. I don't usually hear people saying, let's go have fun and do yoga, right? It's like,
Mhm.
let's get centered, let's get spiritual. And sometimes it feels heavy. I don't know how that evolved, but I love what you're saying. And you're working with very successful, stressed people. They don't need another stressor in their lives, right? Like your role is yoga should take that away or calm that down or help you, whatever it is. So I think it's beautiful. I think it's a great, great message. I know it's not anything I was expecting you to say
Hmm.
today. So I'm just trying to be respectful of the time. So I do
Oh yeah.
want you to talk a little bit about your book and
Yes.
and then I will want you to unabashedly promote yourself. But talk a little bit first about your book, and I want what's the message that you want people to get out of it and promote it so that they'll go get it.
Well,
Turning
so
inward,
the
right?
yeah, so the first thing, just to put to wrap up the idea of the last part, is I want people to know, a to have fun. That at any moment when you take yourself too seriously, that you're just missing. There's one of the great icons is the Shiva Nacharaj, and even though I was raised in the Southern Baptist tradition, and there's a Old Testament, Moses idea of not worshiping false idols. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I have great respect for the iconography and mythology that I've studied so much in India. And some people look at those icons like the Shiva Nacharaj, which is the Lord of the Dance, the with
Mm-hmm.
the Abhaya Mudra, the forearms, the Abhaya Mudra.
Yes.
It's called the graceful upturned foot, and there's all this beautiful iconography or different symbols. And I respect that people some look at those like the Shiva Nachraj as a deity and as worshipful. For me, they're reminders. So when I see the Shiva when I see Hanuman, it's a reminder of service. And when I see Ganesha, which is the elephant with the elephant headed with the big belly. The belly represents like satiation. It's called Vairagya, which means contentment. And then the trunk of the elephant is called Viveka in Sanskrit, which Viveka means the trunk of an elephant is Viveka is discernment. So the trunk of an elephant can pick up a tree or a blade of grass. And so that power of discernment to do the heavy and the graceful is viveka, is discernment. So you have the satiation of the belly and the vairagya and the discernment viveka of the trunk. And that to me is a reminder that you got to do both. And so it's not for me a devotion or a worshipful practice, even though it is for some. For me, it's a reminder that you've got to have both. You've got to have contentment and satiation, but also discernment. And the Shiva Nataraj is a reminder to dance. So the Lord of the Dance, when I look at it, reminds me to say, get over yourself. Don't take yourself too seriously. life is a dance. And so I wrote this book because so many people think of meditation as this serious, it's gotta be this thing, it's gotta be perfect. And I realized it's not. I really almost hated meditation. And my teacher, Sally Kempton, my main teacher, said, you'll be fine. It doesn't have to be perfect. If you just turn in and don't call it meditation, but you turn in and remember that even if it's just taking a deep breath, even if it's just pausing before you speak, no matter what you call it, turning in or introversion is the word that I like to use that I learned from Carlos Pomeda. And what Sally told me is, you'll be okay. If you just turn in and realize that don't take things too seriously, life is a dance like the Shiva Nataraj, you'll figure it out. You'll be okay. And that to me was what I needed to hear so that I didn't try to be something that I wasn't, that I just would realize that get over yourself and enjoy as opposed to trying doing it perfectly. And as it said in the Bhagavad Gita, in the Gita, it says the worst thing you can do is try to live someone else's life. It's better to live your life poorly than live someone else's life perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
And that to me, when Sally taught me that, it just changed everything. That's why you don't take life too seriously. And that for me was what I needed to share with people, that when you turn in and realize that you'll be okay, even if it's not what everybody else thinks it's supposed to be, just turn in. And even if it's binging a Netflix show or if it's not what everybody else thinks it is, just be yourself, have a good time, and it doesn't matter what you call it.
Mm-hmm. That is so great. That is a message I think everybody needs to hear. So thank you for sharing your gift with the world. So I have one more question for you.
Yes.
Imagine I have a box here. Okay. And inside that box is everything you ever lost. It can be animate or inanimate. What's the first thing you'd reach into the box for and why?
Everything that I've ever lost. One of my favorite sayings is that everything that you've ever lost, like that you never lose a tool that you've learned. All the tools, all the lessons are always there. And so I think I push back on the premise of the question that you can't actually lose anything.
Mm-hmm.
That that we already have everything in it that we would remember, that we know, and that we never actually learn anything. We reveal what is already there. And so the pushback is I just think that there is no loss because you're already found. It's all about a revelation of who you are and what you already know.
That is really great. Okay, so tell people where they can learn more about you, get your book, follow you, all that good stuff.
So Ross Rayburn Yoga is my Instagram. Peloton app is where you can take my classes. Turning Inward, pretty much any of the different sites. And honestly, less about me and more about, and this is what the book is. It's about trusting that all of the wisdom and creativity that you need is you turning inside to your own heart, your own awareness, and that you don't need me. You actually just need to take a deep breath and remember that you've already got what you need. I'm just a guide. We're all you by doing this podcast. You're just holding a mirror or a reflector or a prism up to remind people of the beauty and the goodness and the sagacity and the joy that already exists, that we're all in this together, and that ultimately we're all just, holding hands and either jumping off a cliff or diving into the ocean or dancing across the sky. We're all doing it together, and no one knows fully what's right. But we also have to be humble and realize together that we're all in community. In Sanskrit, it's called a kula, a community of the heart, that we all need each other, and we will all promise to do our best and honor each other, whether we're flying or falling.
That is beautiful. I'm reminded of we're all in it together, and as my friend quotes, philosopher, we're all just walking each other home. Right? It's the dance. So thank you so much, Ross. Today, this was real. I could talk to you all day long, and I am following you on your Peloton. I'll try to take a live class, but the live classes are hard for me. But if I do, I will expect a shout out. But thank you again. Thank you so much. This was really, really wonderful. And I would encourage everybody to please go get Ross's book. The world needs more Ross Rayburns, for sure.